Thanks for tuning in. This is Alex Jones for Age 518. Wanted to submit our final presentation and report. And I actually want to use the board here to show you where I'm at. Actually at the workplace real quick. So this is the weight room I function out of and work out of. And there's some weights and stuff to your right and left. As you can see, there's my desk there. So just let you know where I am to get this video started recording. Excited to present to you today. I'm actually speaking on the stress and frustration that can affect the child or youth and even a parent-child relationship when it comes to the parent being overwhelmingly excessive and their support and their coaching and their teaching or their demand of the youth, okay? First reference I have on the board is actually relationship between self-concept, body build, and perception of father's interest in sports and boys, okay? That's by Donald Felker and other artists, but he's the main artist, okay? What I noticed in the research and the project here is that the father, and we'll break it down, usually starts with perception. What does he think of the sport? What does he think of that sport's best athlete? What does he think of himself? And ideally, what does he think of for his child? Now, every parent out there wants their child to be great. Every parent out there is going to obviously invest finances, but invest time and support for their child to be great. But the perception of what that sport actually does, sometimes I notice in the reading of the book, or the article rather, is that the intent or the connection to what it can become is what creates the intensity of the perception. So thinking about the success of the athlete, thinking about the success of their child, thinking about the success and as far as comparison to the other children, what they're looking for and what they would deem or identify as being great or better than everybody else. Okay, interest. What is an interest? Is a child choosing a sport that the father is not interested in or he doesn't know about? In many instances, this creates a great deal of confusion because usually you're trying to detour a youth or child towards something that you can have some say-so, control, be heavily involved in when it comes to your coaching, your expertise, or and obviously affecting your parenthood. And then lastly, the comparison. The self-comparison is a huge factor. And typically with fathers and boys, you're talking football, something with contact, right? Contacting with each other, contacting with other people. So football, basketball, and baseball, your primary sports, which you usually see fathers doing very, very heavy comparison in. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in soccer and track and field or on lacrosse, but primarily those three sports, even in movies when we watch them, those three sports always usually come up when it comes to comparison and fatherhood. And because of that, the father's interest in sports, in their boys, the father's interest in their boys through the sport, and sometimes it could be more about what the son did in the game more than who the son is. And I never want to get to a position as a parent, and even as a coach, definitely as a parent, where I'm comparing so much to where I care more about what you did in the competition than who you really are, okay? Our second thing I want to speak on is the good father, okay? So this one is the good father, parental expectations in youth sports. This is by Jay Coakley. Let me turn this camera for you. Okay, this is by Jay Coakley. Obviously, there's other artists, but let's focus on the main ones. And here, the first one is individuality. That is beginning to rise now where we don't have as many youth as involved in sports because individually they either don't see themselves being heavily involved or that's not something they really care too much for. They want to be their own person, their own being. They don't want to be in comparison to anybody else. They don't want to be limited to anybody else. And they're looking forward to other parameters and positions and opportunities that they individually like. And this is from youth. So we have 10, 11-year-olds that don't want to play sports. Okay, when I was coming up, I'm not sure my age, growing up in the 80s, in the 80s and early 90s, everybody had to do a team sport. Now that's not happening. Obviously with concussions and many other things, that's beginning to occur. Okay, single parent and father only involvement. So this kind of goes hand in hand because a lot of times with the single parent, what's happening is the father is involved in the sport only and heavily. That's where their primary focus is and that's where they're losing their youth. We have to begin to change that dynamic, okay? And lastly, parents maintain programs. So basically, the more parent puts in their money, the more parent puts in their finance, the more parent puts in their time, they feel as if they should have more say-so than just being supportive. If we really support our youth and our children, we must be in a position where we understand where we should be involved and where we should, okay? Lastly, how do female athletes want parents to behave? By Camilla Knight and some other writers. And the reason I did females is because, as you know, the first two were more based on the fathers, which lets you know that maybe fathers are limiting their experience or their existence to their experience, their connection to their son and or daughter being an athlete, okay? So we notice the female athletes, It's all about before, during, and after, which is very interesting because most athletes don't really concern themselves about before the competition or before the practice. But what female athletes are concerned about is, when it comes to before, is what are you now showing me that I don't want to see in the moment? What are you now showing me that I may be concerned about later, okay? So before the competition, what am I concerned about? What do I see? What don't I want to see? During the competition, are you embarrassing me? This is very huge for females. Am I being embarrassed? I have enough pressure to fit in. I have enough pressure, obviously going through puberty. I have enough pressure to be accepted. Oh, how are you acting during this competition? Will I be more remembered for what you did than what I did? That is huge for a lot of youth, and that was spoken about in this article here. And the last thing is afterwards. Am I praised or am I corrected? Is a correction only limited to what you thought or what you see? My wife played high school basketball, college basketball, and for a number of years, the relationship was more based on what she did on the court. She just wanted to be supportive, and eventually it turned into, hey, do you have to be at the game? Or if you're going to come, could you do this? And when those things begin to occur and rise, the relationship is dwindled. And me being a father of a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, I'm already understanding the reality of not placing stress. They shoot basketball. My wife is in collegiate basketball coaching. Obviously, I'm strength conditioning. But I can't place the pressure, because the reality is the faster I place the pressure, the faster not only do they possibly lose interest in the sport, or think that's the only way I love them is through the sport. Ultimately, I lose the relationship with my father. And being a single-parent child, I want to go with just my mother. I don't want to lose my children for sports. I don't want to lose my children for the stress or the pressure I put on them, or have my children needing a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or someone else to talk to, because I only know how to be a coach. I don't know how to be a parent. So that's a quick presentation of what we talked about, the stress factors as associated with placing early individualization, early specificity.